And thank you so much for joining us from across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one place where you sessions. So, what are we waiting for? Let me go ahead and introduce our next very interesting session here, ladies and gentlemen. And the topic is designing products that your customers will love. Let me go ahead and introduce our moderator to you, ladies and gentlemen. That's Smita G. Bagala, and our panelists are Sarah Nathan, Govindarajan, Deepa Prahlad, and Ravindra Kondagunta. Welcome to our panelists and welcome to our moderator. Let me now go ahead and hand over the session to our moderator, Smita G. Bagla. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Tani. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. And welcome, Sarah, Deepa, and Ravi. We are in for a fun session today. So I would like to ask our panelists here as well as this, what is something that engages us? Like, for example, do you remember Tesla, the new electric car that came out? I'm in love with it. It doesn't matter what new car they come out with the new version of the model they come out with. I go out and I look at it. I want it. It doesn't matter. A car is to take me from one place to the other. It's the same luxury drive. It doesn't matter. But it is the design, the sleekness and stuff. So that's the emotional engagement and the user engagement and the hype they create. So I would like to go through and ask my panelists that too, but let me first introduce and ask each one separately. I am Smita Bagla. I am the CEO of Aligned Strategies, alignstra.com, and I'm a product strategy, gamification, as well as user engagement strategist. So I love to think about these new products and bring it my clients or corporations. So here I have first, Sarah, I would like to start with you. Sarah is the chief architect and head of connected play engineering at Mattel. He's an accomplished transformation leader in media, communication, and new exciting products world. So Sarah, what is your favorite product and where do you play in the product space? Could you please explain to us?
Thanks, Smita, for having us, and good to see you, our fellow panelists, Ravi and Deepa as well. Looking forward to an engaging conversation over the next hour and learn and also contribute immensely over the next hour or so. I think your question around what products impresses me most, right, and what is that serves as a source of inspiration for what I do in product space within Mattel. I think there is like many things come to my mind, but one thing has been more ubiquitous than anything else is the transformation that has happened in the digital world, and especially Amazon.com and what they have done within that space. Right, it's a simple. I mean, it's in mid '90s. It started as a simple product. I mean, selling books, and I think if you look at the transformation from there to now, the theme is very, very still true to that original vision. I mean, keep it simple, make it easier for customers to interact, find things and order and whatever else they want to do, right? But now they do. I mean, Jeff Bezos and the team there at Amazon does sell everything under the roof that you want to buy, that you want to find, and the simplicity transcends all of their new products, whether you're watching videos on Amazon Prime or shopping on Prime Day or Black Friday. It's the ease at which you can find any category of products, whether it's books, whether it's household items, and so on and so forth. I mean, they've continue to innovate on this over and over again, and with things like Alexa, which is a natural user interface for voice as an user interface. They've taken it even further. I mean, every step of the way, I think it comes back to how do I make it frictionless and simple for the end consumer. To me, my favorite product is how easy they have made it to find anything that you want under the roof,
And the awesome Mattel products, right? The
Yep,
Barbie and the Hot Wheels
absolutely,
and everything. So
absolutely.
thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. And then we could talk further about where your Mattel's play engineering comes into place. And next, I would like to introduce Deepa Prahalad. And Ravi, I will get to you for the third question. So Deepa Prahalad is an author and innovation consultant, product design, product strategist, and she helps startups and large multinationals. She has authored a book called Predictable Magic, Unleash the Power of Design Strategy to Transform Your Business. And which was selected by Fast Company as one of the best design books of the year. And she writes frequently for Harvard Business Review, Business Week, other magazines. She's part of Thinkers 50. So, so coming from that kind of an exciting, innovation and talking about it, I bet you find inspiration in the smallest and in the most wonderful areas. And I would like you to tell us what's your favorite product and where do you play in this whole product, starting to finish, from design, from thinking to the end. Deepa.
Yeah, I think this is a real challenge because I believe that technology has such a powerful role for us in terms of getting inspired, in terms of what we want to create. And also, once we're at that point of having designed something, being able to talk about it, being able to share it. Technology is extremely powerful in there, but all those little steps in between is kind of where I have a lot of fun. And of all things, when you asked us this question yesterday, I looked around my house and around my son's room, and I said, that humble glue gun has helped me take a lot of ideas and make them tangible enough to talk about. I don't really know how to sew, and I hated it even when I did it in home ec for a few minutes. Don't want to get out all the power tools, even though we have them. But being able to build small models, modify toys, get things in a shape where they can be communicated and can inspire people. It's such a simple product. When my son was young and he was looking around, he wanted to build. And of course, we weren't going to trust him with power tools. So that glue gun was this nice bridge that was safe, that let him modify things. And I've seen that that's really created that bug for always doing something, not accepting anything as it is, but having that understanding that I can change something. And I think that powerful learning sometimes gets implanted in the simplest ways. So the specialty I have is really about how to create emotional connection. I think that's the differentiator between the companies that do something that functionally works and the ones that really have the ability to create community, to create new narratives. And so I do this with both startups and large multinationals. And I think increasingly, a lot of people are using that same mindset to social innovation, that even if people may have less income, they have aspirations, they have beliefs about who they want to be. And that design is such a powerful tool to drive social change as well.
Thank you, Geet. Thank you, Deepa. That is very interesting. You use the glue gun that ties everything together as the innovation tool. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce my wonderful colleague and friend, Ravindra Kondiganta, who is a growth specialist, a growth catalyst, both specialist and catalyst, and managing partner of Traction Labs, which is a product design and a development accelerator based in Southern California, primarily across automotive and consumer packaged good industries. He is very good at taking your ideas all the way to fruition, and he has come up with an excellent methodology on it. I love to talk to him about it. And so, Ravi, what is your favorite product and which part of the equation of the product do you play? Would you like to tell us?
Thank you. And first of all, Smita, thank you for having me here. Wonderful to have Deepa and Sarah on this one. So this is amazing, right? You come from this amazing consumer background, design background, and Mattel, what Sarah is doing is this growth background, right? I love the idea of taking these concepts, needs, and stuff like that, and putting it together and actually creating mechanisms and creating products and scaling them up, right? So I take these concepts that Deepa was talking about, these needs that Sarah was talking about, and then putting them together. at Traction Labs, we've put together, I have a background before I tell you about Traction Labs. I have a background in mechanical engineering. I am an expert in design thinking and systematic innovation. And so what happens is at Traction Labs, we put these things together in this process called 3E. We've created, this is not very esoteric. We just say, hey, explore, experiment, and execute, right? And these are three basic processes, steps that we use to bring products from concept and develop scale, take them to market. And talking about favorite, and I can talk a little bit more about it later on down the line, but we essentially take these ideas, these concepts, and do the details of it, right? Design it, develop it, engineer it, and find out how it can be mass produced without flaw, and excite the customer, right? Like excite it like Tesla, excite it like the glue, work like a glue gun, right? Or work flawlessly like Amazon's web page, right? Coming to my favorite product, just you asked me this. I know I did not want to do Apple, but I did. They came up with this beautiful Magic Keyboard. I am telling you, this Magic Keyboard is fantastic. It just sits on your table. It's a significant improvement over their little triangular thing, right? But it's so simple, right? That's all it is. And you can put an iPad on it and it just sticks to it, okay? And you can, look at it in whatever direction that you want, right? And it's flawless. It's light. It's so, and above all, it's innovative, right? And now you will see Samsung, you'll see everybody try to copy this one, right? But that is what solved a problem, right? And that is scalable at $275, of course. But hey, that's what is aspiration about it.
Right.
So that's a little bit, my favorite product is this keyboard.
Wonderful. That's a good segue when you say innovation. There is innovation, creativity, emotional connection. I would like to know is that how does that, when you're designing a product, like, people are really fond of Apple, people are really fond of Tesla, people are really fond of Amazon. Sarah, you're right. I thought about it. Like, Amazon has come up with so many innovative ways of making it simpler for you. And, the glue gun had made all the kids happy. Even though I think the toys like Hot Wheels and Mattel makes me happy too, will make my kids happy too. and Apple products, they all look forward to it before we can. So that brings me to my second question that I am like trying to understand is like innovation, creativity, solving a problem from a different point of view to create user engagement. And I would like to get your thoughts on it as to how they play in the product design for the customers. Like, they will love customers will love it as well as they'll follow it through, right? So I want to get your, and right now, why don't I start with you, Deepa, on the innovation and creativity and the user engagement point of view, and then Ravi, and then Sarah. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think when you're starting to do anything new, what you really have is two tools that you need to leverage. One is the physical product or service, and the other is the narrative around it. And what differentiates the companies of all sizes that are really able to forge an emotional connection and have a community is really just the fit between those two things, right? Because what your product is, what is promised and what is delivered, that is at minimum in terms of engagement, is you create trust. And then what a lot of companies do, like maybe with the keyboard Ravindra was talking about, is saying there's some element of surprise as well, something I didn't expect. And I want to be the one to share that with my friends and family. So when you're creating as an entrepreneur and you're struggling in the garage, you always need to think in terms of, let me get the minimum viable product, let me test. But you also have to understand when you put things out in the world, the metaphor I always think of is when you're buying shoes for your own children, the first thing you do is you press down on the toes to make sure there's room to grow. And that's the mindset you should really bring to all types of customers, right? That there's something that it not just works, but I can see this becoming a part of my life. And great technologies, even simple products like the Instant Pot. Someone is so excited, I can make my homemade yogurt here. I can make my favorite biryani that takes, 3 or 4 hours by some other method. So there has to be trust as a non-negotiable, but that discovery element is really important as well. And that is what really differentiates, I think, kind of the leading companies that have this wide following. And the other interesting thing is that if you look at social media engagement and things, a lot of people follow companies that where they don't actually consume their products, like Tesla, for example, simply because they want to be inspired. So narrative used to be something you did after the product design. What I'm seeing increasingly now is with issues like sustainability, inequality, and everything, you almost see kind of narrative first, right? You see a lot of people saying, I will commit to doing this in terms of the environment. The actual steps may not be completely, even exist at this point, but you inspire people to contribute to a vision. I mean, Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. He never said, I have a 10-point plan. And that's why it's so compelling even today.
So thanks, Deepa. So dream is what you can dream it is what leads to innovation and creativity in this way. So Ravi, would you like to comment on that?
Sure. And I think the angle I look at this prism is just like Deepa spoke very elegantly about the design. What makes it aspirational, right? But then, bringing a product to market has various stages, right? It is the need, it is the it is the problem that you're trying to solve and how you bring it to shape, right? But then there is this need to then translate that, explore what words they are using, how are they using their hands, their eyes, how do they play with it, as Mattel says, right? And then translate it into tangible attributes, deliverables, right? And then put that into a product with innovative mechanisms or something clever. What makes you have to think about growth, right? You cannot have a problem that is solved but is not replicatable, right? Amazon, you go to Amazon, it works, right? One click, Sarah will tell you, hey, listen, click, and it is there. It's not like you have to go fumble around with it, right? And that is what scale is. You have to understand that strategy. You have to understand it. In our exploration phase, we do that. And then experiment. Not one solution fits all, but then putting all that together. And the key is actually doing it a million times, repeating it and executing it, right? So
Thanks.
that's what I think is growth to me, at least.
Right, right. So innovation means, as you said, exploration of different parts, and then that is like, so I come from like what causes people to motivation to be able to use a product, to be able to do that, and then the designers capture on it. Like Sarah, I would like to come to you and see, for example, like we do a lot of user research earlier as to what, but like your consumers are little kids. What kind of innovation, what kind of a childlike mentality one needs to have in order to get them, because they don't compete with each other, they just get happy. So in a way, like I help with the gamification on that, but it is something that people have innovation in their mindsets, right, to be able to do. Would you like to explain a little bit as to how innovation and creativity works with you, for you at Mattel?
Just a brief just step back on who's Mattel is, right? Mattel is probably people don't know Mattel as much as some of the brands that folks have grown with and the kids have grown with, right? Maker Barbie, Hot Wheels, Thomas Tank Engine, and Imaginext, and Fisher Price, American Girl. I mean, there is like slate of IP that's actually defined and probably empower the next generation how to discover the wonder of childhood, and while they're figuring out what their full potential is. That's part of our mission statement. I mean, it's about figuring out the wonder of childhood. I mean, it's simple as that. And since you're playing from anywhere from 0 to 13, 14 years old, and on the higher end with the collectors, we have collectors who are at the age of 70 still buy Hot Wheels cars as well. So it's like, even though the primary audiences are kids, we cater to a wide array of consumers and tastes and what they're looking for. the part of the challenge, and also something to look forward to every time we step into Mattel, is how do we create the next big thing for that will excite the kids to play more and tell stories and create memories for life, right? It's a simple concept, but yet very very challenging because of the consumer and being relevant, especially in this world where everything is connected, iPads and some tablets all over the place, and the costs are coming down. So it's a much very very competitive environment. So some of the things that we do is based on simplicity. I mean, you don't think of that, it well, that this is what the kids want. This is how they will play with our toys. I think we take all of that away. It's all starts with, hey, let's figure out a starting point, create a play experience, and then let's put it out there in our imagination lab, right? That's what we call it. I mean, it's a fun place to go to work every day. I mean, when the COVID is over, we should be able to see that much more, right? And seeing the kids walking in every day and say, "Oh, I get to play on something that's not even in the market. That's not even that I'm actually defining what the kids will play for next Christmas or next holiday, right? As they're looking for, as next birthday for that matter." So, and we start with this simple concept and a play experience that makes sense, and then let the kids dictate what they want us to build at the end of it, what stories they want to create. And especially this is true with the electronic toys that we are building on, because these experiences are the ones that are new, compared to, I mean, like an art wheel. I mean, it's a car. It looks like car. It's one of the extremely high level of engineering product, similar to what Ravi was showing with the Magic Keyboard. I mean, people don't think about it, but the mechanics is pretty good. All we have to do is make sure that we don't mess up that. But as we build some new experiences, we cannot start with the fact that, oh, we've been building cars, we've been building Barbie, we've been building Thomas engine for too long. Let me build another one. That won't work. I think it comes back to keeping it simple and start with the eventual consumer in mind, and more importantly, listen to what they say every step of the way. Right? I think
Right.
pivoting when we need to is critical.
So great. So that means it's covering different parts of the product design here. But when you do market research, consumer research, you find out what they need, what they want, but then you have to come up with what you really want to put in a product. What exactly is the thing that will engage people that way, right? That your customer
Yeah.
is going to love it. So there are some processes that Stanford School has processed, as well as we all do in practicality too. It's called like design thinking, right? So I would like you guys to give like a little bit of view is how you would, what design thinking is to you, and how do you use it, and how can one use it in their own when they come up with the ideas that they need. So Ravi, why don't we start with you in this time, if you'd like to
Excellent.
explain a little
Yeah.
bit about design
Sure,
thinking.
sure, sure. And design thinking, just for those who are not aware of it, this was started by this company called IDEO. There's a beautiful book around it. Stanford D School that actually teaches this and scales this up. And it's anchored around this idea that you need to understand, it's empathy, right? You need to understand the customer and get into their shoes and feel what they are feeling for the product, right? For in a particular experience, and then design, and then you take this into a hypothesis, translate it into how would you solve a problem, and then scale it up, right? And to me, design thinking, taking that, is understanding, yes, a customer, you need to understand what that customer is, but to me the key there is translating that need into tangible concepts, right? Learning by doing is one of the things that they anchor in. And so I like putting those developing mechanisms to solve that problem. Understanding what the customer needs is one thing, developing unique designs and actually putting that and then making it scalable, right? So I like
Right.
that idea. So design thinking to me is understanding the customer need, internal and external, by the way, right? External is primary, but internal also. If you're looking at production, how do you make sure you can scale it up using
Right.
systematic, a tool like design thinking? And design thinking is a tool essentially, and
Right.
there are lots of them.
Right. So design thinking is, as you mentioned, is from Stanford D School and IDEO company. And it has 5 parts to it. Ideate, be empathetic with the customer. Then once you've ideated, you come up with what you need to
Hmm.
come up with the product. So you do prototype it. And once you get that prototype and iterate on that prototype and then bring it to the market. So that is the whole process on it. So Sarah, can I ask you, what is design thinking to you in your work and play engineering, as well as like in general? How do you use that concept for you? And thanks, Ravi, for explaining the concept to everyone too. Thanks. Yes, Sarah.
I think it's a fundamental shift in how I mean product designers or creators need to think about solving problems, right? It's I would make it into two parts. One is like can you break down the problem into as simple a concept as possible, so you can
Mhm.
go through the steps that you mentioned, Smita. And for a company that's almost like 75 years old, I mean, Mattel's 75th anniversary this year. So to change their thinking in product design, I mean, they've been building physical products for all these years, and thousands of products that have been created. Um, it's a long and lengthy process. Mistakes are costly when you actually discover it in the manufacturing phase, in the retail phase, as these products show up on the shelf, right? And that's where this design thinking is really. I mean, it's a huge game changer for any product, whether it's digital or physical products, right? The way we are trying to adapt is first of all is a culture change, because people have to think in small pieces, so that we can iterate on it, prototype it. Prototyping needs to be low fidelity as well. It need not be perfect. We use chicken wire and duct tape all the time to make it visible. So as we get the kids to test on these products, it's not a final product. It's nowhere near a final product. In fact, we have Foley artists behind the wall making sounds, because we are not ready with the audio content for the toys. So anything and everything goes, as long as you can test meaningful concepts. So as you said, concepts is important. You need to be able to compartmentalize it, make it small, build prototypes. Low fidelity, medium fidelity is actually the better way to do it, and bridge the gap with anything else that you need for delivering the test capability. Test often, and then once you hear more, and the last thing is you listen to the consumer intently, not
Mhm.
force the issue, right? I mean, it's very, very critical to listen to them and figure out the nuggets of of what it's them, right? I mean, Deepa was talking about human connection as to how you design these products. That's important. This is the way you get it, and that's the reason it's so popular. The design thinking methodology. You get that, you go back at it, and start building the next iteration of the prototype. And you do it over and over again in smaller cycles. You fail fast, fail often, um, fail cheaply, right? And then most importantly, learn. I think that's
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
forget that it's learning is important, and then go back at it. And we found an hybrid way of implementing it, because it's a manufacturing company. There's a culture change aspect of it. We call it design sprint, and there is an aspect of it is becoming very popular. So that's what we have done in the last couple of years of transformation of product design, and delivering the next generation of experience for our kids.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. So, Deepa, you basically are the innovation expert. You come up with great ideas. like I've worked with you, and it means for me, it's like you come up, you see innovation in the smallest possible things. So, how do you use design thinking, and what does it translate to you?
I think when you have, whether it's a large company or an entrepreneur, today a lot of people can have global ambitions. And I think that everyone actually does care and has empathy. But what tends to happen is you can get overwhelmed with data very easily. And the one way to zero in and do things in a way you can move forward. Sometimes you see companies, they'll come in and they have actually listened, but there are inherent contradictions in what people want. There are inherent contradictions between what they say they care about and their actual behavior. So understanding how you can deliver a rewarding experience and make people comfortable with the process of change is critical. So what really good companies do is they also address through their design and through their interactions, the fear that goes along with adopting something new, right? I mean, on some level, when you're introducing a new product or design, you're telling people that what you were doing until that point could be improved. It may be lacking in some way. The way you get over that is you create such great excitement about doing something new. So people have two impulses that coexist. You have this need to evolve. You also have deep attachment to rituals and aspects of your identity. And you have to really help people synthesize those in new ways. I remember, for example, and it takes longer than you expect. I think people have to come to terms with this. It's not an overnight process. So what innovators do is, if I want to change someone's beliefs, I don't tell them their beliefs are wrong. I give them multiple ways to sample. Cultural attitudes, for example. Maybe I can try a new food. I can try, watch a film, read a book. And then you suddenly see, oh, you know, I read Memoirs of a Geisha and I tried sushi. And now I'm actually interested in this philosophy of Ikigai, which has very deep ideas about what our purpose is and we're here for. And you see this in the Indian community so much too. People see a snippet of Bollywood dance, then they have a turmeric latte at Starbucks, and then suddenly they're doing yoga. So you let people find their comfort level. So I think innovation is really about providing choices. And I also think that when we have so much data, you can't trade on that. You can't really make an impact by saying, if we could do this for this price. What you need to understand is understand people at their aspiration level in order to really do that, right? So people do go on the web. Tech has been really powerful. And I always say people go online to see what they can buy and they stay to see what they can be. And that is actually really interesting. If I look at even my own searches, I was at the Tuck School, this isolated little campus in New Hampshire. So there was no good shopping. We all went there to shop. But today my searches are very different. Who's doing research in my field? You know, how do I keep in touch with friends and family? So you're looking for new connections and new networks. And that I think is something that we can leverage. You get paralyzed with a lot of data, but if you hone in on what kind of emotions people are looking for, and the good news is it's a finite set. And if you have a structured method to look at those contradictions in implementation, there's always trade-offs. But if you understand what people are looking for, it helps you see, like, when I'm taking away a feature or modifying it, am I trimming a toenail or am I cutting an artery? That's really important to understand. And I think there are good ways to do that.
Right. And, you know, but people get caught in there. Oh my God, this is design thinking. Oh my God, this is experiment, explore, experiment, and execute. Oh my God, this is this. These are big words and buzzwords, but it is pretty simple. I'd like to demonstrate one, and I know this is just, I'm bringing it out. For example, if I say I went to a party and I took, you know, 6 balloons, and I ask you to add more to it, add another sentence of this party. Go ahead, Deepa. Add something more to this. Is like I said, I went to a party with and I saw a pair of balloons. What else did you see at party? Now you're thinking, right? So you want to add something?
Oh, yeah, whose birthday is it?
Okay, Ravi, why don't you add something to it? Is that whose birthday it is?
What flavor of cake? What flavor of cake will it be?
Right, and Sarah, now you add something to it. See what it is.
Oh, okay. What is the how many candles was on the birthday cake? I think Ravi took it away from me. I was thinking of the icing on the cake because I'm a sweet person. So.
I know we
So
are
you
too.
see,
I am too.
so what we are seeing here is we are coming up with the ideation, with the thinking. This is all, folks. This is what design thinking is exploring, thinking a little bit more. It's not a buzzword. And that's what Deepa, Ravi, and Sarah have also been saying, and that I live by, is that it is just you see another way or extended way to look at things. It's not a buzzword. Everybody can do it. And that's how you create an emotional connection, because then you are in that game. Now I'm in that party. Now all four of us are in this party. I'm looking at balloons. Deepa is looking at whose birthday it is. Ravi is looking at when do I get to cut the cake, and Sarah is I want my icing. How many candles are there? Remove the candles so that I can get to the icing. But we all now engaged in it, right? And we all are waiting on it. So that is what something design thinking is. That so for this is for the folks like who think that that they have to take it back. Now I had one more question on this, like a segue from what you guys had said earlier, is fail fast and fail early and fail often, right, in order to come up with the best product. But failure is a concept that we here in consumer products we have started realizing. How does it work across cultures? How does it, for example, failure would work in concept of India, where you want everything to work right away? And I will leave it. Who wants to take the first go at it? Sarah,
I can.
you want? Oh,
Go ahead, Sarah. Go ahead,
want to?
Sarah. Go ahead, Sarah. Go ahead, Sarah. Go for it.
I think if you look at, I think failure has been seen as a negative connotation. I mean, it's like right from your childhood going into school, and you don't want to see a failed grade or even see a lower than. That's the culture we've been grown into, right? I think go from there to the fact that uh, not to have massive failures on the other side on the later part of the career. It's a that's what we've seen in industries. I mean, whether you think of massive failures in the last 20 years in the commercial sector, Enron, for example. And it's a massive failure of how to do accounting. I mean, it messed up a lot of people's lives. And it's like you don't want that's what you don't want. What you want is how can you do it in smaller increments and have have a learning point every time you finish an experiment. And Ravi talked about experiment and execute are key things of his strategy as he's doing product design. I mean, the reason is nobody has a right answer at this point in time because you don't know the consumer. Not everybody is Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs came back and said, "I am creating products that people don't even know that they need it," right? There's not a whole lot of people who can do that. But how do you how do you address the massive gap in what the consumer want and what you're building, right? That's I think this adopting failure, small failures, right? Um, and learning from it is a switch. And failure is not necessarily is not it needs to be embraced. It needs to be celebrated, and you can do it in small increments. I mean, you talk about when a kid's trying to learn a bicycle, for instance. I mean, you put the training wheels on to make it safe, and like you tilt here and there. That's like I mean, you're learning with failures at the young age. Why is it not relevant when you're actually working in the corporate world? Now think about removing the training wheels, but you're still 3 feet above the ground or 4 feet above the ground. You fall at that point, it's still small failures. You're not breaking anything at that point. That's what we're talking about. Now compare that, and you are like say 30 years old, and you're learning to bike or to ski or whatever else. Now you fall at that point in time. It's going to be painful. You might break things, and that's what you don't want, right? I mean, you need to figure out the difference between failing small, failing early, and failing often. Most importantly, learn, right? That's the fact that you need to add to it. So, Ravi, if you want
Thank
to
you, sir.
add,
Yes.
Yeah, and that's fundamental in our 3E process, right? Design thinking tells you understand the customer, but once you change that and translate that and create a concept, failure is about creating a concept and learning from how it's used also, right? So explore, experiment, and execute. That experiment part of it is extremely important. And in cultures, actually, this is a huge problem. American culture tends to be very innovative. You're trying this out. Yes, they fail, but the cost of failure is not that much. Cost of failure in execution is very, very important. In India, if you have a Britannia biscuit, that you can take a Britannia biscuit that is crumply and powdery, right? But if you have a Britannia biscuit that is a cookie in America that's not, you fail, right? I mean, people won't buy it, right? So I think this idea of what is failure to me is understanding how customers are behaving or interacting with a product and translating that into a tangible mechanism that can actually be executed at scale. Tesla,
Right.
if you had a
Right.
fire in Tesla and every 5 cars had an issue, your demand falls, right? But I think that is failure. In cultures like Korean culture, I'm very familiar with Korean culture and Indian culture. I think we need to learn, that learning has to come instead of just getting a solution that allows you to leapfrog in front. But absolutely, you need to learn from doing and using and then create products that you slip and fall, but learn
Ve-
from it.
Right. Very interesting concept. Deepa, what's your point of view on failure? And especially in culture, like, different cultures, and how did they adopt this innovation and failure, right? At the same time, fail early, fail fast.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways that we can mitigate, failures and increase learning is just simply really embracing the idea of synthesis, right? I mean, if you look at something as simple as, how do you use the bathroom? They have people who argue for the squat toilet versus, the standard Western toilet. What is one of the most successful products on Shark Tank? The Squatty Potty. All it is a little stool that allows you to kind of assume the squat position in the comfort of sitting on a toilet. So I think synthesis, it sounds silly, but such a powerful concept, because then again, you're allowing people to evolve. I think what has also happened is now we have such a huge plethora of tools and techniques. We tend to think that caring for the customer means taking away any pain, any inconvenience, but we also find that in a lot of categories, the things that people really bond with do require some effort, but it's an effort and a belief in a reward that's really huge. So you look at something like CrossFit or all of these things, those are actually powerful badges of honor because it requires effort. It tells me and others that I'm capable of doing something I didn't think I could do. So empowering people, you don't take away people's agency in the quest to, try to create a great consumer experience. So I think that's really critical. And you do have to set expectations in terms of the level of transformation and the time frame. Simple thing. Like I remember when I was getting married, people were just starting to put all their registries online. And so many people were like, is it really safe to order gifts and send online? Will it actually get to you? Educated people, by the way. And today they're finding the spouse online. So people, so people can change. But it takes longer than we want to object. And I always tell people, you have to look for some things, not perfection, but if there's no energy and excitement, if people are not offering suggestions, again, emotional connection is really important. We talk about co-creation, but co-creation depends on trust. Their initial product design, people still tend to think too much in terms of aesthetics. design is evidence of your execution capability. If I really say, okay, you know what, I made this pretty good, dinner, but does anyone have any suggestions for what other toppings I can put on this salad or this cake? And the initial thing and the trust and the narrative around it, everybody will be happy to contribute. Not everyone can co-create. You have to build trust and relationships. Your design is a signal of both your intentions and your capabilities. And I think that when you have that kind of alignment, then Apple as a company has a lot of missteps in its software. That emotional connection is more powerful when things fail than even when they succeed. Because what happens when there's a software glitch? Hundreds of thousands of people want to write a fix and publish it right away because they care about what the company stands for. So that's where you always need to nurture relationships the same way you do in your personal life, you have to do as a company.
Right. Interesting. Very nice. So failure,
and standing
means,
behind it also. Sorry,
standing.
the brand, once you execute at growth, at execute, you then have to say, hey, listen, we stand behind the product and support the customer's experiences, right? Failures are
Right.
absolutely.
Right. So fail is a success, but it's also giving yourself permission to be able to do that. That is very important. Like, a failure doesn't mean a failure in a product, doesn't mean that what your idea was not good enough. It just needs further refinement. It just needs further this. So giving yourself permission. And like Sarah said, that in India, we are, for the Indian context, what happens is that we don't fail in school. We don't give ourselves permission to fail. We always have to. But you have to be able to fail. The story about the king who got trapped in a cave, and then he tried to get out and he was like, my life is ending. But he saw the spider making a web. Like one time the spider fell, then they went up and did it again 21 times, and then it created a beautiful web. And then that gave the king that confidence that I can go. So failure is just having that perception and perseverance in order to be able to come. So another thing that I'm enjoying this conversation. What I would also like to do is understand more about the emotional connections. How do you carry, not just how do you create a product and then you bring it to the market, how do you capitalize on it to continue the engagement, to create that people wait for the product? Like, for example, as I mentioned, Tesla is my favorite product, and Tesla's car, like I was one of the early adopters of Tesla car, but then Model 3 came out. Even though I didn't need another car, I went there. I wanted it. I wanted to go check it out, right? And then now Model Y has come out. Just the sleekness of it. What else does it offer? That continued engagement. iPhone 12, I want it just because it's out there. I don't need extra cameras. I don't need anything extra in my smartphones, but it is just that the continuous engagement that people wait for it. What kind of emotional connection do you need to create, and what helps you create it? So what are your views on it? So please, whoever would like to do, this is our discussion time, guys. So please go ahead. Anybody?
Sorry, maybe
Sure.
Ravi, go ahead. I think Ravi, go ahead.
So I'll just actually take that example that you spoke about, the Tesla, and I'll compare it to the Prius. Right? In 2012, one of the reasons why Tesla, you have this emotional backing behind a Tesla is putting together what Sarah and Deepa was saying. You have to be good at scale, learn from it, and react also, making the customer first. Right? In the automotive industry, Toyota big companies, they were experienced, they know how to build a car. When you had an accelerator problem, they said, hey, listen, we'll take a year to look at it and think about it. The same problem, a Tesla in 2012 had a fire problem. The same day, Elon Musk came up and said, listen, we'll figure it out within a month, within a week, you'll have a solution, right? So that is what you have to, that agility at scale. Now, remember, I'm looking at it, you're going to look at it in 3 different other phases. But to me, at scale, you have to be reliable, repeatable, Six Sigma. But when you fail, know that you fail, customer is right, react to it very quickly instead of blaming the customer, right? So that to me is reacting to, scale, how do
Create
you,
the emotional connection
exactly,
because
exactly. And
it's
that,
like,
that actually
you,
creates a connection because you're
right,
now saying, hey, I'm connecting with this customer. Jobs did
right.
this with antenna on his iPhone. Sorry,
So
Sarah,
you
go ahead.
respond. No,
Yeah,
so this is the
exactly.
response that you need.
Right.
Yeah, totally. So Sarah, what was your take on it?
Like I think I mean the attachment comes over time. I mean you don't build trust and connection to the product in like one day. I mean Rome was not built in one day, right? You think of, I mean, like I use some other examples in like in Indian context. I mean, if you look at in nobody thought Ola was needed 10 years ago, right? I mean, as a taxi hailing service, I mean, Uber found an opportunity saying that okay, I mean, there's a pain here. Consumers are being mistreated or not getting the value for the product, either one of them. Let me figure that out, and then then it spread like forest fire, and every country has a version of Uber, and Ola is the biggest version in India, right? That's one example. And then the other one, I mean, you talk about Paytm and what their growth has been, and I mean, it's one thing about what the product is, but they were at the right time is also another concept. But the simplicity of the product and the emotional connection as to how you use that product it became ingrained in every aspect of life, whether you're buying vegetables, whether you're buying electronics goods in one of the stores in the mall, or paying for your auto rickshaw. I mean, it's like, I mean, it becomes a way of life, and that's what um, drives the emotional connection to the products that you like. And in fact, you will get to a situation where you'll see beyond the imperfections of the creator themselves. I mean, in your case, and I would say, no matter what Tesla does, you will buy it because that's what you are. And
Right.
same thing is true with Ravi. $275 magic something, right? The word magic makes him buy it, and it's coming from Apple, and it's you're going to get something. You're going to get quality for sure. You're going to get the highest customer satisfaction. You know that when there is a problem, they're going to react to it quickly. Right? That's and coupled with the fact that you're all innovators and you want to be in the forefront, you want to test the bleeding edge of things. You establish that fourth connection as well. But then there is all these other aspects that mere models do connect to. I mean, it's simplicity, it's the ease of use, it's oh, it makes my life easy. I feel cool about it, and I mean, there is like many things that adds to the fact that
Froze
you
here.
sense
Okay.
builds an attachment to the product. Yeah.
Right. So once again, Deepa, before I get to you here, is that what Sarah mentioned here was the fact that simplicity and, that how you get feel. So it's to do with the intrinsic motivation of yourself too. How do you want to be perceived? If you're carrying the latest iPhone, how well does it match with where you want to be, where your
Yeah.
lifestyle is? And a lot of people right now, a lot of companies are using that as the Octalus's prime network of, like, the design of motivation, intrinsic motivation, external motivation, how it makes you feel, what is your place in society. That's like the gamification of the product. So a lot of people, once they understand what the problem is, then they come up with what could be the motivators for people to be wanting to own it. And Sarah, you're totally right. Tesla may really fail, do an epic fail, like what they did with that Cybertruck. I forgave them. Yes, I would buy them. And this happens. They are innovators. And for Prius also, they are in the right place, like Ravi said, right? They're in the right place and they responded so well. So that way. So Deepa, you go ahead and tell us, what do you think is creating this emotional connection and this for people to go ahead and take more into, like, to wait for a product to come out, to really have, like, the cult following of it.
Yeah, I think this is something that can be done, whatever the price point is. You have to really affirm the dignity of all of the people who are using your product, right? I think when we look objectively at why different products fail or, suddenly peter out, a lot of times it's not a functional issue. What they have really not done is double down on inclusion to the extent that they should. And this is going to become an increasingly important issue because the life cycle of CEOs is decreasing. The life cycle of any technical advantage you have is decreasing. So if you are not incredibly inclusive at the outset, it becomes very difficult to go back. So then you see, well, somebody did make an Ola because Uber didn't see it. And somebody did create, all of these Oyo rooms because Airbnb didn't see that as a market. So that's how you get disrupted, is being not sufficiently inclusive. And the other thing that's changing, it's with a great deal of sadness for me personally, because I've looked at, my father created this idea of the bottom of the pyramid. And, literally last year I cataloged what's changed in 20 years. And here's all the exciting things that could happen today. And we've always been able to say, how can we take people up this high, this ladder and take them into something better? And today we have to say, all right, if people are experiencing a downturn in their circumstances, how do we still preserve their skill and their dignity and create experiences that make them still feel very optimistic about the future? And I think that people like Dollar General, for example, he said, well, what he's done is just take away any stigma from bargain shopping. He said, I'm going to give people bite-sized pieces of the experiences they value. I'm going to stock Starbucks Frappuccino. I'm going to stock craft supplies, and I'm going to stack little things like mini Lego sets, for example, right? So everyone knows about Coursera and Udemy. Well, in the top 3 of online learning platforms in this country is, of all players, Goodwill. They have small, bite-sized things. How do you write a business letter? Things that may be obvious, but maybe not so much for people who have not had the benefit of going to college, having friends that they can. So I think this one powerful, thought from my father that I think is so important right now is he always used to tell me, he said, you know what, Deepa, entrepreneurs are the freedom fighters of the modern age. A lot of things can happen in terms of political statements, but bringing a reality on the ground is this continual work of entrepreneurs. And that's really why it's important.
What a fantastic statement, by the way.
Awesome. A good way to end. I think we're having so much fun that we didn't realize the time is almost coming to an end. I really would like to thank all of you to participating in this discussion with me. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Deepa. Thank you, Sarah. And over to you, Dhwani.
Thank you
Thanks,
very,
guys.
very much. Well, I have to say this has been a brilliant session. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Failure only means further refinement, but that's my takeaway. And I will remember that all my life. So thank you once again very, very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is not every day that we get to learn from the masters, but it's possible in DIE Global Summit 2020, where it's a perfect place to gather all the information you need to make your dreams a reality. Well, with that thought, let me once again thank you so much for joining us today. This is Dhwani Mitra signing off, and thank you to our panelists and our moderator once again. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.